Hello. So music from the 80s, you will see that a lot of features that I will show were probably there in the 80s as well. The clicker doesn't work. That's not, yeah. So that's me, my Twitter handle. Nothing has changed. I'm back to consulting to DBI services after a bit more than 1 year at CERN. At DBI services, we do consulting. We do also anything remote, like the training workshops, anything. The agenda is quite large. I came with this idea to show 19 features, but it's way too much. So you will see that I will stay more on the first one, go fast on the other ones. And do not hesitate if you have questions remotely on Slack, ask someone to ask questions. There is enough, a lot of content, but please ask questions if you have. The most important ones are at the beginning. So I came with this idea to show not only the new features, but very old features that we use every day in Oracle. And especially you probably all have seen this DB ranking engine. I don't like it at all for two reasons. The first one is that it's about the popularity of the database. And usually we should not choose a database for its popularity. And the second thing is that it looks like, for example, Postgres is catching Oracle, MySQL, and SQL Server, but be careful. This is a logarithmic scale, which means that, of course, Postgres is growing like all those, but they are still far. And my idea was, because we talk a lot about the new features that are in open source databases, and that's interesting, and this is why they are popular. But there are a lot of features that are there in Oracle for years and years and years, and we do not talk about them just because they are not new. For example, MySQL just implemented hash joins in the latest version. Oracle will not shout out, wow, we have hash joins since a long time. But basically, we use them for years and years and years on Oracle. So my idea there is more to talk about the features that you use, maybe without knowing that you use them. And then if you move to another database, something will be different. I'm not saying do not move to something else than Oracle, but just be careful. You will need a bit of effort, additional effort in development, in administration, because you use a lot of features that makes life easier in Oracle. And I mentioned very basic feature. I will start with select. Of course, all databases can do a select. But with Oracle, we can do a select that doesn't lock anything. And best way is to show you. In this screen, I will show you quickly. So my screen is divided because I will run 2 sessions. In the, does it work? Yeah. So in the bottom screen, I'm running SQL Plus there. With some old settings, my idea is that I will select on a table, but I want to do it slowly. I have a small table, but I set array size very small, page size small, so that I can fetch rows a few at a time to show what happens when you have a long running select, but I do that with a small table there. So because I am in pause on, the select just started to fetch a few rows, but do not display them immediately. When I hit enter, it displays a few rows there. So my select is currently running. I fetched a few rows and I displayed only 3 rows there. And now we will see in another session what happens to show you that I'm not locking anything by a select. So I query $SQL to show you that I have one execution, this one, for this query. 3 fetch calls, 5 rows processed, so only 3 displayed by SQL+, 2 more rows are in the buffer, and I'm not in end of fetch, so that's a query that is currently running. If I query locked object, nothing, no lock at all. Which means that I can update the rows because there are no lock. I commit my update in the other session. I can select and I see my commit. I've set 1 to all commissions there. I can look at VDollar. I can query to show you that my update is there. You know, with Oracle, you can not only see the current value, but you can also see all the past value that you have in the undo. So with a flashback query, I'm showing the initial value and the value after my update in this session. Now fetching a few more rows there, so nothing is blocked. Someone else is still doing a select. I add a few more fetches, few more rows still in the select. And I'm still reading something that is consistent. Because I started to read data as before, I do not see what I have updated in the other session. As soon as I started to fetch 1 row, I must see the same data as of the same time before this update. So those are consistent reads. And a lot of databases need to lock the data to be able to do this consistent read. Not Oracle, thanks to the undo. Because there are no locks at all, that doesn't block DDL. I can drop the table and still continue to read from it. You see, executions, I'm still running the same. And that has nothing to do with recycle bin. This is why I purge recycle bin. I just see a consistent snapshot from the past, even if the table is not there anymore. Of course, it's not a recommendation to drop tables while people are creating them in production, huh? Just to show that when we say no lock, it is really no lock. And last time I gave this presentation, just 1 hour before, Brent Ozar, so on SQL Server, tweeted no lock everywhere, because in SQL Server, a select locks the rows. And if you want to select, for example, the DBA wants to count the rows, you can do dirty reads. So then you do not lock anything, but you do not read consistent things. So the interesting feature you use every day with Oracle is that you can get consistent results without locking anything. Postgres can do that as well, but most of the other databases, no. Second feature after the select, insert. Again, every database can insert rows, but mostly only the commercial databases can do fast load like insert append, direct path insert in Oracle. Update. So that's another one. And it may sound funny, but Postgres do not update the rows. I mentioned that Postgres can do consistent reads as well, but they don't have the undo. So the way they do that, they never update a row in place. They just create a new version of the row. And that has some consequences. Logically, it's the same, an update, but physically, if you update always the same, but I have a demo, so I will show you that. The consequence of the fact that in Postgres, you don't really update in place. So on Oracle, on the top, I create a table with a number, a flag, and some text. I connect to there and insert some data there. So this is the size of my table, 12 megabytes. This is a query just to show some statistics. I will zoom there because the screen is not so large. Yes, so this is basically, let me just go back. there. So this is basically my table, and this query will get statistics from VDollar MyStat, but do the diff to show it quickly. So information about my table there. And what I will do is an update. I have a flag in my table, and I will update the flag that is no everywhere, and I update it to yes. Something that can happen in some table that have a flag like a processed or something like that. And I can see that the table is still the same size. I changed 1 byte by 1 byte, nothing increases. And I show the statistics there. I'm mostly interested by the redo size and DB block change. Where is the redo size? Yeah, 4 megabytes. Sorry, this goes anyway. 4 megabytes. I just changed 1 byte in every row. And now I will do the same in Postgres to show you the difference. So Postgres, I will zoom this one, quit the Postgres, pSQL. I created a database for that because that's a bit faster in Postgres. You can create databases in seconds. I create the same kind of table there and insert 10,000 rows like I did before. Analyze to see the statistics, 11 megabytes, nearly the same as what I had in Oracle. This is my way, yeah, well, this is the same way to look at the volume of the redo. If you have seen Pete's presentation before, and I do this update, and this has generated 12 megabytes of redo, of wall. Just changing 1 byte generated the same size as the wall table. And if I check the size of the table, 22 megabytes. Because it doesn't update one flag, it copies the whole row. And you can imagine the consequence in the wall, in the rights, in the indexes that have to be updated. I continue with the demo about the next slide because I'm on it. I set back the flag to n and I run a query where I count the number of n from demo. I have an index on n, and what I want to show you there in Postgres is that with the explain plan, it's something like the gather plan statistics. You can see the number of buffer that have been read. Buffer shared it, yes, index only scan, and the number of buffer that have been read. What I just want to explain here is that when you see an index only scan in Postgres, it may have to hit the table. Actually, it was not really the case there because I think I was lucky and vacuum happened just before. If I run it again, yeah, this is what I wanted to show you. Postgres has a process that cleans up the old rows, and I was not lucky it happened at the same time. So this is what I wanted to show you. After my update, I just count the number of the column n where I have an index, so I have an index only scan access. No need to go to the table, but finally you can see that you read 20,000 blocks from the table because Postgres, even if they tell you index only scan, may have to go to the table blocks. And actually it's to see if something was changed by another transaction. And if I do the same in Oracle, I do the same update, I select, and this is the equivalent in Oracle, where you have an index fast full scan, but this reads only the index. If you look at the number of buffers, you don't have all rows. So what I want to say there is that if you compare Oracle and Postgres, because both of them provide consistency without lock, the implementation is different and is a bit more expensive there in Postgres. And index-only access is a very interesting path because usually when you just fetch a few rows, index access is perfect. You go through the index to the table blocks and you get them quite quickly. If you read a lot of rows, then full table scan is good if all those rows are from all the blocks of the table. But when you are in the middle, this is where you have problem. This is where the optimizer may not know the best access path and the plan may change. So one goal of tuning is to be sure that either index access is the best one or either full scan. And index-only access, the advantage, it can reduce the time to get rows when everything, all the columns are in the index. And then you add maybe some columns in the index so that you don't have to look at the table. So this access is quite interesting. Next feature, in Oracle, most of the time, you don't need to reorganize the table, especially you don't need to reorganize on regular interval, like the table storage degrades and you have to do something. We have seen with Postgres that that's different. If I update and the table, if I update just one byte and the table size double, you imagine that you have to reorg after big updates. Oracle maintains all the structure to be optimal for query. It's optimal for data ingestions, insert, update, but then you don't need to do anything else to query except special cases. And of course, that's very interesting because you want predictable performance. And for example, in Postgres, you will get performance worse and worse and worse, and then you need to reorg, but you don't have always the same time. Oracle maintains the table, the heap tables, the indexes balanced, and you don't have to do all those reorganization usually, and you save time. Cursor sharing, that's a feature that basically most commercial databases, so Oracle, SQL Server, DB2, try to do something like compiled languages, where you compile your program once, and then you execute it for multiple values, where MySQL or Postgres will compass, the hard parse, will do it for each execution. Because they don't have this library cache area where all the execution plan are kept and can be shared by other sessions. And compiling for each execution takes time, takes CPU. That's also something to take care maybe and think in the application to be sure that you prepare the statement, reuse them, and less problem in Oracle when you have that. Partitioning, Pete already talked a lot about partitioning, and Pete has shown that the basic features are the same in Postgres and Oracle, but there are a lot more. Global indexes with their maintenance, partition-wise, John, you see the same in Postgres, but not in all open source databases. Partition exchange, a lot of things. So what I want to tell you there is, do not compare just on the titles. Like, well, Oracle has partitioning, Postgres has partitioning, so that's the same. it doesn't go at the same level. The partitioning that you have today in Postgres is very similar to the partitioning we had in Oracle 7. So many different features. Number of partitions also. In Oracle, you can have 1 million of partition. This is not a recommendation, but you can. In Postgres, you will probably not want more than 10, 50 partitions. Probably the feature I like the most in Oracle. You can run the optimizer as of any version. You can upgrade to 19c to get support, to get security fixes, and still run the optimizer from version 8 if you want. Again, this is not a recommendation. Do not run the optimizer as version 8, but you can decorrelate the upgrade that you do for support to get new features with the risk of execution plan regressions. And you can also, if you have a problem after the update, you can immediately set the optimizer as before. And then you have the time to try to understand what has changed. Maybe you had a problem with the statistics before and one mistake compensate another one and the plan was okay. Things like that. And that's something that I don't think that any other database, but any software that can run as of any version. And you can imagine the developers who have to maintain this code. That means that since Oracle 8, any feature they implemented, any bug fix they implemented, they added a flag in the code to enable it or not, and then maintain a table of those features and those versions. And when you set optimizer feature enable to 11.204, it will set 100 of underscore parameters to enable or disable specific features or specific fixed controls. So that's something that probably has a big cost in Oracle development, but this can save our life when you have a problem with a regression and a plan can that change is a regression. I will show you quickly to illustrate this idea a tool that is not provided by Oracle. First, I will show you, so let me zoom that. When I want to see the different values that are possible, I just set it to the value that is not allowed. So those are all the values you can set the optimizer feature enable, all the versions since 8. And I will show you quickly a tool not provided by Oracle. It was made by Mauro Pagano. And the idea of the tool, I will just let it run to see the idea, is that if you have a regression in a plan, for example, or maybe a bug, and the quick workaround is to set the optimizer to the previous version before the upgrade. And then you want to understand what has changed between the two versions. And this tool tries all the many flags that are behind the optimizer feature enable and will generate the plan, and then you will compare and you will find exactly which feature did the change. And that will help you to focus on the problem or contact Oracle support, or finally, just put back the optimizer feature enable to the right version, to the latest version, and just disable the feature that causes a problem. So when it runs, it shows you everything. I show that just to give you an idea of the number of parameters and flags that are behind that. It's about 1,000 or 2,000. Ints, that's something also that is not recommended to use everywhere, but with ints, we can investigate a problem in a plan, if the optimizer comes with a plan that we don't think is the best plan, we can force the plan we like and compare the decision of the optimizer. You don't have hints in all databases, and you don't have as many hints as in Oracle. And with hints comes SQL plan stability. When you use SQL plan baselines to fix some plan, and again, to avoid regressions in the plans, it generates all the hints that can take the same decision as the optimizer. So for example, you have a problem and you set back the optimizer feature enable to the previous version, and then you get the hints, or you get them through SQL plan stability, through the baselines, and then those hints can be injected in the query. And you fix, at least for you work around a problem like that. Going to another feature, crash and media recovery. Okay, many databases can start after a crash, but with Oracle, I mean, all my colleagues working on other databases, after a crash of the server or a problem in the storage, they check for corruption, like running a DBV. I do not. If I don't have a specific error in the alert log when I start up the database after a crash, I don't check for corruption, because this should not happen. This is really reliable in Oracle. And you are happy that in case of crash, you do not lose anything. Herman, recovery manager is not a backup manager. All databases have backup tools, but Herman manages the recovery and know exactly what to recover. And that's a big difference. You don't need to recover a file. You just you don't need to know which file you have to recover. Herman knows where it is. And I will show you something about that. So I will cancel. Yeah, it's still running. Yeah, there are thousands of parameters. This is the kind of tool that you run for the night because you don't want to take all resources, and then you check the results later. That was just to show you all the different possibilities that are behind. So I start Herman, and I will show you something that you may or may not know with Herman. So this is the list of the files that I have, and I will just corrupt a few files, because that's cool to do at POEG. Didi writes some random things in the files that have system in them, so system data files. I check the checksum just to be sure that I changed something, and I will crash the instance. Shut down abort. So that's the worst you can do. You crash the instance, you have random things in your data files. When I start up, of course, I will get an error message because it is detected, which is already a nice feature, because having a corruption is one thing, but having a corruption and not knowing it before a few weeks is another problem. Okay. No, yeah. Because the PDBs was not opened directly, I touched only the system table space for the PDBs. So when I open my PDBs, I can see that I have some corruption. File 12 needs media recovery. And then I don't want to think about what is this file, what happens. Well, if it happens, better to know what happens. But I want to show you the recovery advisor, where I just start Herman, list failure, and it tells me that something is corrupt because that has been detected, and that's really nice. I can ask for a recommendation, advice failure. I just typed advice failure, and it tells me the different thing that I can do. And I realized that I have no backups, but Herman has another solution there. Repair failure. Herman tells me what he will do. I will say yes, but the most important thing to read is Herman has a plan with no data loss. Actually, I have no backup there, but I have a standby database in DataGuard in sync, so it knows that it can take the file from there. This is what it will do. Restore the data file from service. Not even the need to move the files manually. It just contact the standby, give me this file. So I say yes, and everything is automatic. If you have a problem, better to get in control and do things, but you know that you have an advisor that can help you to find what's the best to do. Do not restore a whole terabyte database if what you need is only one data file. Do not restore a whole data file if you have only one block that is corrupted. And Herman can help you for that. If you go to another database and you don't have similar tools, you can still operate critical databases, but you will probably need more DBAs to manage that. I have no idea about the time, but we have time, I suppose. Huh? At what time do we stop? Oh. How much do you have? No, probably 10 or 15 minutes will be okay? 10 better? Okay. Sorry, I will go fast. We all love Oracle support, right? That's the feature you will miss if you quit Oracle. I'm not talking about opening a star and waiting an answer and providing logs that have nothing to do with that. But most of the time when I have an issue, I find a note in Oracle support very quickly with just the error message and a solution or a workaround. And this has no price. I mean, open source community is also there to help, but here you have notes, and that's the big difference with commercial databases. In open source community, you have mailing lists, you have Stack Overflow, you have many people to help. But here, the notes that you have in the support takes time to ask the developer to control them. So all the process when they discover a new bug can be long, but many customers then benefit from the solution. Wait event, Oracle is very well instrumented. You know where the time is spent. Some other databases have also wait events, but not the same level of instrumentation, because that exists for a long time in Oracle. Upgrade and migrations, you can predict the time it takes to upgrade. Your upgrade doesn't depend on the size of the database. In Postgres, you can upgrade in place, but they usually recommend a pgdump, like an export-import. You can do a lot on very, very big databases. Of course, I mentioned auto-upgrade, which is a higher level of automation. Transportable table space, that's also something that can help for migration of a very large database, and you cannot find that everywhere. Oracle is multi-platform. I skipped that because now Oracle is mostly cloud and Exadata for the new features, but it used to be available with all the features in all platforms. Oracle 7 was available in OS2, SEO, NetWare, because that was relevant at that time. And there are probably a lot of applications that were developed on those platforms and still running now on new platforms without any change in the code. Matterless view. Oracle has matterless view that can be transparent to the queries. Oracle can rewrite a query on a fact table when it sees that it's faster from an aggregate. And this is transparent, like you do not have to mention when you want to use an index, you do not have to mention which view you do. And those views can be refreshed, synchronized with different level. For example, in recent version, you can refresh on statements, which means when you update the table, it updates the material as you immediately, even before the commit, like an index, but with more possibilities, join, etc. Flashback, log miner, all those features that you may use only one time in your life, but it will save your job if you drop a table and you can flash back to it quickly. Data guard, you have seen how it is nice. Data guard is not only for DR, data guard can do HA because you can automate the failover. If the standby is in sync and you put an observer, the failover is automated and you can have recovery in a few minutes. And you see many features. For 19, I had too many to say, so this is a list of features you have. All those many online operations where you don't have to come on the weekend to do something on an index, for example, and many features that are useful in some case or many cases. What I want to say as the core message is the main question. I see a lot of people saying, Oracle is expensive, maybe one day we want to move out of Oracle, then we do not use Oracle-specific features. And that makes no sense. If you pay for Oracle, use those features. And if you quit Oracle, then you know which feature you use and where you may need more development, more automation to do yourself. But my recommendation is really use the feature. Just document, know which feature you will have to compensate or buy another product if you quit Oracle. And also, if you know exactly your plan to move out of Oracle, exactly which features you will have to spend more effort on them, money or time, your discussion with Oracle sales will be different. If you are locked in, if you don't know how to move out, if you have a plan to move out, then probably you will have a price where finally your decision is to stay because you have all those features that came with that. So good to know what you use that is not elsewhere, but that's not a reason not to use them. So that's my main message. Do not compare only the title and the buzz and the popularity of the multiple databases. It's really different. Working with a commercial software and working with open source software is completely different. And there is no better or not, but your effort, the effort you do in development administration will be different for sure. And do not look only at developer features. A lot of decisions are taken by developers. They build a new microservice and they pick a database for that without thinking that one day you may have to restore this data 10 years later. And we have a lot of features for the whole life cycle of your data, not only for the fancy features that come with development. Okay, I'm not sure we have time for questions, but I'm there anyway. I will look at Slack. Yeah. Zoom or Slack or no. Any question in the room? Yeah. Yeah. In my case, it was probably AutoVacuum that came there. I didn't expect it, and I didn't switch it off. By default, it's on. Yeah. After some modifications in the tables.
So Krzysiek Kalinowski asks, are list failure, repair failure work in Oracle RAC 19?
No, I don't think so. Maybe Mike knows more about it, but Recovery Advisor on RAC, no.
So no.
Okay. I think we can have a break maybe. So
Stop
thank you very much.
being lazy and start using Erman.